Lisa, why don't we start with an executive officer
Statement. Yeah, so we have just a few items to share. Just want to give the board an update. We had a priority funding round opened up in May, and it closed in the middle of June, June 11th. And we had 43 projects that came in requesting for $191 million. And again, their certifications will be valid through July 1st through December 31st, 2015. So if there's cash that's induced to the program, these folks would be first priority in accessing the cash. And also, just to highlight to the board that because of that filing round that did open and close, there were 12 projects, $11.2 million. And these folks had the second occurrence, so they actually lost their award. So, and those are several career tech education projects. So that bond authority would go back to that particular line item, and then once we have the regulations in effect, that money will be dispersed as a priority back either to new construction, modernization, or a priority to health and safety projects. And then just to give an update on the apportionments, the board took action in April. There was $113 million that was provided to districts that already had an existing bond approval and the certification that was valid. We technically have $67.6 million that have come through the door, and so we're slightly shy of hitting that goal of getting all that money out. So we have a deadline of July 14th. We've been actively reaching out to those districts to ensure that they comply with the requirements and they access the cash. And another update is the budget. The budget was enacted and approved by the governor and the legislature, and so there is going to be a reduction in the staffing from OPSC of 37 positions. There also is, the outcome is that no one will lose their jobs. We have some vacancies that will be absorbed, and 25 folks have either moved on to other positions within the department or taken other positions outside of state service, within other state departments. We also did want to share as well, as addition, the emergency repair program as a result of the enacted budget will see $273 million, and so the goal is to fund all the projects that are currently on that Williams case settlement that have been pre-approved back many years ago. So we'll likely take that action to the August board. So the goal is to bring all those projects forward and take action at the next board meeting.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to hold on for 1 second.
Okay.
Ms. Jones, if you could take the roll, please.
Senator Hancock. Senator Liu. Senator Runner. Assemblymember Nazarian. Assemblymember Bonilla. Assemblymember Chavez. Nick Schweizer.
Here.
Cesar Diaz.
Here.
Esteban Almanza.
Here.
Irina Ortega.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
And then 2 more updates. We will not have a July meeting, so just we'll resume back in August 26th. And then there is a regulations that will be effective July 1st, and that relates to AB 308, and that relates to site sale proceeds.
Okay.
That's what we have to share tonight.
Okay. Should we go back to the minutes?
Yes, the minutes are ready for your approval.
Under tab 2, these are the minutes for the May 27th, 2015 meeting. Any questions or comments from board members?
Move to accept.
Moved by Mr. Diaz,
Second.
second by Mr. Almanza. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. And the consent agenda?
Consent are ready for your approval.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Diaz,
Second.
second by Mr. Almanza. Any public comment on the consent agenda? And nothing from the members? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously, thank you. And Lisa, you want to do the status of funds?
Yeah, the fund release report, just really quickly on that item, there was no releases in the month of May, so that takes care of that report. And as far as status of funds, with the consent agenda being approved, there was over $35 million in projects that resulted in $43.2 million in seismic projects being approved for unfunded approvals this month, and also to take into account the $11.2 million in rescissions in the career tech education program. Plus, there was also numerous closeout and rescissions, and we have over $652,000 in that activity for 14 projects. So that summarizes that activity for this month in the consent agenda.
Okay. Any questions for Lisa? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the action items. So for the members of the audience and the board members, we have two items for action on the agenda. One is an appeal from Napa Valley Unified School District, and the other is three school districts grouped together in one item as Pittsburgh Unified, Paris Union, and Lindsay Unified. These, all four issues are related to labor compliance issues, and so I thought it would make sense to have one presentation on the background on labor compliance. We can take the items up separately, but have the staff do one kind of overview and then hear from the districts and have our questions and comments. So we'll move into the staff presentation. And this would be related to tab 7?
Tab 8, right.
Tab 8.
On
Thank
page
you.
83, yeah. So we wanted just to share with the board that we are taking forward a report related to the labor code compliance. The board has heard several cases in the past, and to some extent, there's 4 applications that are unable to meet the labor code requirements, and for purposes that we cannot release the funds at this point in time, it's because we didn't have the notification requirements that would enable us to release the funds at this point in time. So just an overall synopsis, we had 4 projects, one from Pittsburgh Unified in which they had no compliance monitoring related to the project. Excuse me, let's back up. They didn't have the notification related to the 5-day notice to Department of Industrial Relations. Likewise, Paris Union, they also have a project as well. They did have some notification, but it was 5 months into the project. We have Lindsay Unified. They had 2 projects in which the work was commenced and completed, and we had no notification of Department of Industrial Relations until after the project was completed. So again, we have these non-compliant issues, and we addressed the board in the past about various issues on how they dealt with the matter. So again, without any action, the board staff cannot release the funds. So we're seeking board direction at this point in time.
Okay. So if it is okay with the other members, I thought we could do is ask the districts to come up and just talk about the issues for each of their districts. And I think it makes sense to just start with how they're listed in the agenda. We'll start with the Pittsburgh Unified folks.
Ma'am, I'm Assemblymember Bill Dodd.
Oh, sure.
I was told that I might be able to get on because I've got another appointment outside the building.
Oh, okay. You know,
Sorry for that to you.
so, no, that's okay. I think that the Napa issue is really the same background, so I think that would be fine if you want to go ahead and speak to the Napa issue, and then we'll loop back around.
What do you like?
Sure.
I already have my behind you, so. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here in support of the appeal request for the appropriate seismic funding awarded to the Napa Valley Unified School District that's in my district. The appropriated amount of $951,423 will be used for 2 schools that were most vulnerable to risk. I'm aware of the unfortunate circumstances that led to our being here today. However, I believe that the district acted in good faith and attempted to communicate with the Department of Industrial Relations as required by statute. One of the concerns was the adherence of the district to a prevailing wage requirement, of which I was assured that they did comply with as prescribed by the intent of the law. The Napa Valley Unified School District is unique in its circumstances in that their commitment and decision to move forward with these 2 projects, ensuring the safety of their students in spite of the lack of awarded funding, was unsuspectingly validated, though, by a 6.0 earthquake on August 24, 2014. The NVUSD is unique in its circumstances in that their commitment and decision to move forward with these 2 projects, ensuring the safety of their students in spite of the lack of award of funding, was unsuspectingly validated by that earthquake. That decision alone proved to be prudent and timely. Fortunately, there were no children in any of the school buildings at the time. The need for this funding, whose sole purpose is to ensure the safety of the students, is urgent, and I respectfully ask that you grant the appeal for the appropriated funding and that the initial award amount of $951,423 be fully funded with all respect to the urgency of this issue. I appreciate your time and attention, and Madam Chair, I appreciate you allowing me to go first here.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wanted to speak on the Napa issue?
Madam Chair and members of the board, I'm Patrick Sweeney. I'm the superintendent of Napa Valley Unified. I really appreciate Assemblyman Dodd being here and representing our school district. We're here to ask your approval for the seismic funds and that they be released to complete our seismic retrofit plan. We have a plan for 15 schools. We had 13 schools, and after the earthquake, we were notified that we had 2 other schools that actually have to be moved because of their location under faults. Some of those classrooms are over 60 years old. We do pay prevailing wage on all our projects, and we met the intent of the law. We have evidence of all the payments that have been made that have met the prevailing wage requirements. And the State Allocation Board actually did approve these funds back in August, 4 days before the earthquake. I'd like to pass the microphone to Mr. Don Evans, the Director of Facilities, who's been involved in many of the projects working with the state, and we've had a very cooperative relation working with the state offices. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeney, members of the commission. I am Don Evans, and I've been involved with these projects since 1978. I've done over $750 million worth of projects within Napa Valley Unified School District. I have a good relationship with general contractors and subcontractors in our geographical area that has resulted in competitive bids and good participation in each of those bids. We've had 3, 4, 5, 6, as many as 10 or 12, which is a good sign that people want to come to work at Napa Valley Unified. Until the law changed that required the districts to no longer be able to use a third party, we had, because we don't have a lot of staff in my office, hired RGM and Associates to administer the DIR requirements. And they did that by going out in the field, meeting with our contractors before the jobs began, going through the process so that we ensure that they knew what was to be done. Once it was changed that we had to do finally, we were in a position that with limited staff, we didn't make that deadline, and certainly we apologize for that. My staff is composed of myself and anywhere from 1/2 to 2 clerical positions, depending on how many projects we have going. The rest of the folks are part-time as we need them, yet we've completed, as I shared earlier, millions of dollars worth of projects. The year in question, 2013, was a summertime project where we had our first opportunity to address seismic projects. You've all been involved with school districts, and you know that the time-sensitive projects that occur during the summer are quick and fast and have to be done properly and thoroughly. They all go through the Department of DSA and are then monitored by both inspectors and the DSA. Yet they still have to open up for the fall start. In my 40-plus years, I've never told a superintendent he doesn't have a school to open up. I was asked by Bill Savage and others to come before some of you in the summer of 2014 to stress the importance of the seismic monies, which I did. We are a district unique in the fact that we have those numbers, as Patrick has shared with you, 15 schools that were built in the 50s or earlier, that in many cases were made out of baselite block and that type of material, which of course is subject to the stresses that were not thought of back in those years and needed to be upgraded. We put together a plan in 2012, took it to our board, estimated it at $20 million to address those projects. The plan would be over summer periods because we don't have extra classrooms or extra schools, and we would hope to accomplish it in 3 to 4 years. We got our first project underway and took care of in the summer of 2013, which is what we're here today to discuss. The boards cautioned us as they approved it that they didn't have $20 million, they had $10 million. And so we were counting on the state's participation in the seismic program to come up with close to half of that. In some cases, it wasn't going to match it completely, but close enough. The board was committed to do that because of the safety involved. We had the earthquake that you all know about, and I won't go over that. But I can tell you that the work we did in the summer of 2013 allowed those 2 schools that were in line, and if you're familiar in Napa, the earthquake came right up Jefferson Street, basically, and Napa High School suffered $1.5 million worth of damage. Its sister school, 1.5 miles north, had $0 damage. but we had invested that money in that school in the summer of 2013, so it works. We are preparing a facilities master plan that we're going to take to our Board of Education in July that goes into more depth because unfortunately this 6.0 earthquake has now identified 3 of our elementary schools that are in harm's way and will have to be completely rebuilt. And in one case, we've got to move it off the site. There's no room available on the 10-acre site to build the school. That alone is a $100 million problem for Napa Valley Unified. In closing, I would like to acknowledge not meeting the 5-day requirement, but going forward, I have a plan, and we've implemented that plan. This summer, my office is overseeing over 100 projects. We have submitted over 60 of those already to the DIR. Every contractor that's working for us knows what they have to do, and we've made that deadline, and we'll continue to monitor that. We have a plan. We've done the seismic work, as I shared with you earlier. The schools that we worked on in 2013 have demonstrated with that 6.0 earthquake that they will survive better than our other schools. But still, we have a $1.5 million problem at Napa High School that we're working with FEMA and others in the OES office to address. In summary, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to come before you today and hope you'll consider our past and present efforts and to meet the requirements, which I understand by the filing late, why I've heard nothing from DIR, so I assume, as I was sure every contractor that worked for us that summer did as they were required to do. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember Dodd, and also representatives from Napa. And do really appreciate the information that's provided and also looking forward and how to address some of the deficiencies. Now that the law has changed, some of those requirements are also not, as critical for the district's responsibility. But in making sure that these standards are adhered to, I think is critical. I think when you look at what happened in Napa with regards to the earthquake and safety issues and the integrity of the actual building itself, ensuring that compliance with the prevailing wage statutes as per the labor code also addresses a skilled workforce issue to ensure that those buildings are going to be built the way that you want them built to withstand those earthquakes, because you are investing that money. So definitely appreciate that, and I just want to say thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we had thought that we would hear from all the schools before we took action on any of the items, if that's acceptable. Okay, we'll stick with that plan. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's go back to Pittsburgh Unified. Is there- Welcome.
Good evening, Ms. Ortega, board members. My name is Enrique Palacios. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Schools in Pittsburgh Unified School District. And this is Prat Shamin, our Director of Facilities. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board on this item. Pittsburgh Unified School District is a school district in Contra Costa County with 11,000 students, 13 schools, with a community that is very supportive of public education. We have, in the past 8 years, built over $300 million in new schools in Pittsburgh. We have had a very aggressive construction program where we've been replacing our old schools with new schools. Of the 13 schools, we have replaced 6 already, and we're in the planning for 2 more. In every of our projects that we have had there, we have adhered to labor compliance, as well as we have a PLA in place. We've had a PLA in place since 2006 there. This particular project in question here in the agenda is a $69,000 project that was the last component to be done in the construction of the Marina Vista Elementary School, which was completed back in 2008. That school was built with labor compliance as well as a PLA. It is one of those, not to be cliche, but it is one of those bureaucratic drop the ball, so to speak. We do have a third-party company that does labor compliance, but in addition to that, we also have a staff person whose responsibility is to do labor compliance and to monitor to make sure that we adhere to those codes. It just so happened that during the time of this small project, this person was on an extended medical leave, and just didn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
And I can provide for the record the job description of this staff person.
Okay, thank you. Is there any?
So should I give you this, or?
You can give it to Lisa. Thank you. Any, go ahead.
I just had a question about the project labor agreement. So the project in question was done with a project labor agreement?
Because of the size of it, it did not apply to it. It's only $69,000. But when we built the school, which was $25 million, we did have a project labor agreement.
I just need that clarification.
Yes.
But on this work, it was not done under the project?
No. Mhm.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Can we hear from the Paris Union High School folks?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Hector Gonzalez. I'm Director of Facilities for Paris Union High School District. And joining me is Dr. Fred Good. He's our facilities consultant that helps us with all matters facilities related in our district. And I'm here today to talk to you about our situation, which deals with a project we had going on at Pinacati Middle School. It is our second phase of work we were doing at that school. This project involved the remodel and renovation of a classroom building, single-story classroom building. And our situation at that time, in 2012, when we awarded the project was awarded in three parts. The first part was awarded in August. Second part was awarded in September. Third part was awarded in January of 2013. So staff at that time, our district, the way it was structured, we didn't have a director of facilities. Our purchasing department and staff at the district was in charge of, making sure we complied with all rules and regulations. And honestly, they dropped the ball on this one. They felt that the reporting, the PWC 100, was to be submitted at the end when the whole project was bid and awarded. So that wasn't the case. In January, when I had been working there as a project manager, asked, hey, have we submitted this paperwork? No, we haven't. So that day we submitted, which was January 9th of 2013. So our issue deals with lack of education and clarity by PUHSD staff at that time. Also, Paris Union High School District had awarded a contract for labor compliance monitoring for the Phase 2 project back in January of 2012. So staff at that time felt that by having the LCP, the third-party LCP working on the project, that in some way satisfied the requirement for the PWC 100. 2012 was the year when the CMU kind of took effect. I think our staff was a little confused as to the requirements and what we were supposed to do, but, so you dropped the ball. We tried to rectify it in January when we submitted our PWC 100. I think really important to mention is, steps that we have taken to ensure that this kind of situation doesn't happen again. One of the biggest steps that happened in our district is the hiring of a full-time facilities director. We didn't have one up until that point. We had one in the past when our district was working on building or had a heavy facilities construction movement going due to a bond. We passed another bond in 2012, and due to issues like this, our district took the step of hiring a facilities director, which is myself. My department has full responsibility for ensuring that any application that gets submitted, any requirements that are due are done, and we follow all the rules. One thing that we're doing is that all staff that deals with facilities and purchasing staff, or anytime any new requirement comes online, we all educate ourselves. We go to as many trainings, as many conferences, CASH, CASBO, try to learn as much as we can about the facilities programs. And any application we submit, we make sure that we're all on the same page as to what needs to be submitted and when. So, and third, we have a redundant system in place. The staff in my office now is really on the ball as far as making sure that, I have a clerk, her name is Errol Griffin, and she won't put a file away until everything is, all the i's are dotted and all the t's are crossed. Checks and balances are the purchasing department. We have monthly meetings. We meet with them. We appraise them of any new requirements that come up, as well as they do to us as far as the purchasing and the contract side. So in that way, we try to do checks and balances for the system. This situation is unfortunate. We're a district. We try to follow the rules, and our commitment is to make sure going forward that this type of situation does not happen again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. And we'll hear from Lindsay Unified. Mr. Doria?
How are you doing today? I am here on behalf of Lindsay Unified School District. My name is Merced Doria, and I'm the Director of Facilities. So I'm not here today to make excuses for this requirement that we didn't adhere to the 5-day rule. What I am here today is to explain to you how we put things in place so that it doesn't happen again. When this first came out, we had some changeover. Our old business manager was leaving, he was retiring, a new business manager was coming in. We went back and looked at what had happened, where this fell apart. The previous business manager had started the process with the PwC 100 form, didn't complete it. When the new business manager came in, he realized that this hadn't been completed, so at that point he completed the form. Since then, what's happened is that any PwC run form 100 form that gets filled out in our district is filled out in my department. It's myself and my office manager, and what we do to make sure that we don't miss something is any contracts that is signed by the board. At that point, the contract is signed, and we fill out the PwC 100 form for that project. Any projects that are over 1,000 that don't require a contract are done at the time that we do a requisition. And I can assure you that this won't happen again in our district, because we have it. It's not in the business office anymore. It's in our maintenance department, and we know better what projects we have out there and timelines, and we can make sure that we can adhere to the 5-day rule.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who traveled up here to attend the meeting. I think it was very helpful. I think one of the things that we all wanted to hear was how the issues that led to the non-compliance were addressed for any projects going forward, and that the overall issue of labor compliance was well on the minds of folks who are working on projects, even under the new requirements. So thank you again. We have 2 separate action items before us, mostly because there are procedural differences. The Napa item is actually an appeal, where Napa filed an appeal to come before the board. The other 3 are before us as a group, where the staff are seeking board direction. And as you all know, it takes 6 votes for any action to be taken on either one of the action items. So I will entertain any discussion or motions there might be. We can start with the 3 as they're on the agenda, the non-appeal, the staff seeking direction. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and definitely appreciate the districts coming in and discussing the issues that took place, but also how to look at it and forward. And as you all know, the laws have changed, so hopefully they're easier now to comply with than some of the requirements that were basically put as conditions to access funding for the SFP. The board has wrestled with a lot of these issues in the past. I think, as board members, we look to ensuring that districts have the financial ability to continue building these projects. They're very important. We know the need is out there. We also understand there's a need also to comply with the requirements of the program, right? And to ensure that there's a balance and that there's attention that's being paid to this particular priority that the legislature and the governor have approved as a condition of access money, I think is something that we also consider in looking at this. So, but also understanding that the hit to the school districts is going to be significant if we do not provide the grant, or if we look at a substantial reduction in that grant. That's money that's taken from the classroom as well. And with that understanding, I think that the board has gotten the attention of the school districts and not taking this issue as something that's not serious. And hopefully other school districts, as they're looking to build their projects, would also adhere to the standards that are set forth in the program. With that comment, I would also like to make a motion that we approve these projects and these districts' applications, but with a 5% reduction, which would be a significant, change from where we've been at with previous districts, which was at 20%. So I'd like to make a motion to approve it with a 5% reduction.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment? Any additional public comment on this? Okay, and so I want to make clear what the motion would be so that staff, since we don't have calculations in front of us, the motion would be that the staff would be able to release the funds less 5%, right? So you can do the math, and I think council would, yes?
May we have, for the record, the basis for the 5% reduction?
So I think in clarification, what the board has done is when there were bond funds available, when we had a different issue, but related to labor compliance, we looked for bond sources that didn't have the requirement and basically had forgiven that particular district. Then we looked at other districts and we came up with a 20%, and one district was even higher. So we basically have been in different places with a percentage, and I think what we're looking at here is just to ensure that their districts understand that this is important, but not necessarily having a high reduction as 20%. I think it's
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Senator Liu? Aye. Assemblymember Bonilla?
Aye.
Nick Schweizer? Aye. Cesar Diaz?
Aye.
Esteban Almanza?
Aye.
Irena Ortega?
Aye.
That motion carries.
So the last item, action item, is the Napa project. So I'll open up discussion on that item. Mr. Diaz?
If I may, Madam Chair, I think with regards to Napa, we had a issue where they're dealing with seismic projects, and then also happened to have a natural disaster happen in that. And I think for that particular district, I think they understand the importance of the prevailing wage and compliance. I think that what they're doing with regards to preparing for, to make sure that this doesn't happen again, but also knowing that if they have a reduction that's going to take away from possible other projects that they need to actually provide the safety for those kids. So I would like to make a motion that Napa gets their appeal approved without a reduction.
Okay. So a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any further public comment on the Napa item? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Senator Liu? Assemblymember Bonilla? Nick Schweizer? Cesar Diaz? Esteban Almanza? Irena Ortega?
Aye.
And that motion carries.
And I think, Lisa, do you have anything else on the?
Just our workload reports for the next meeting, which is in August, and
Okay.
that wraps it up.
Okay, any public comment on any items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none and seeing no comments from board members, we're adjourned. Thank you.